Hello folks, in this tutorial we're going to look at exporting your work out from Adobe After Effects. Now as an example I've just got a very simple piece of fractal noise animation on the timeline here, and let's look at our export options. Now with After Effects there are a number of things you can do to get your work out, so I'm probably going to cover this in 2 to 3 tutorials, and if you've got the time do watch all of them so as you can get all of the coverage. Now, when it comes to actually getting the work out, you can go to File, Export. You've got a range of options here. You've also got options for Adobe Dynamic Link, although I've got to be honest, I tend not to really use the Dynamic Link in this way round. I prefer actually to be in Adobe Premiere Pro and use the Dynamic Link to get stuff from After Effects back into Premiere Pro. So in all honesty, we're probably going to leave the Adobe Dynamic Link choice here, but we are going to do it in this tutorial, but we're going to use it from within Premiere Pro. I think it's better to be in Premiere Pro and drag the After Effects work into it. So we have Adobe Dynamic Link here, but we're not going to use it in this instance, and we've also got export options here. And the ones that I'm going to sort of cover in this tutorial are the Adobe Media Encoder, which you can option here, or you can go to Composition and go to Add to Adobe Media Encoder queue here. You've also got the option of adding it to the render queue, but again I'll probably cover that in another tutorial. So the one we're going to focus on really in this tutorial is the Adobe Media Encoder. And this is the method of getting the work out without doing any dynamic links to Adobe Premiere Pro. I would say you're going to use this option if you actually want to export the file done as is and you want to give it to a client or say upload it onto the internet. So we're not going to use Adobe Premiere Pro. This just knocks the work out as a single finished file. So again, you can access the encoder here by going to Composition and Adobe Media Encoder, or you can go to File, Export, Add to Adobe Media Encoder here. So I'm going to click on it. Now what it's going to do is it will actually send to the Media Encoder the composition that I've got clicked on here. So in this case the composition that I've got is called Noise. Let's now go over to the Adobe Encoder and let's have a look. And the file has now popped up. You can see it's called Noise here. And we've got a range of options that we can use to export it. Now, I've actually covered the Adobe Media Encoder and exporting options in a lot of depth. I've got a tutorial. If you go to the Adobe Premiere Pro tutorials, and I think go to the final tutorial, and I've put in there something that covers this in a lot more depth. It's about a 10 to 15 minute tutorial, and I'd advise you watch that because I don't really want to run through it all again. Suffice it to say that to actually check the settings for the After Effects file you want to export, you can click on the preset here or the format. Excuse me. I'm going to click on the preset and it'll create a dynamic link connection to the composition, and it will open the export settings. And again, I really don't want to run through all of these in depth because I've covered it in another tutorial. If you want to watch what all of these settings mean and how they work, go to the Adobe Premiere Pro tutorials and look at the export setting tutorial. I've left it, I think it's the last tutorial. So anyway, I'm just going to click on OK. Again, if you want more depth, please go to the export tutorial in Premiere Pro. And I'm going to click on OK just to keep all those settings as is. And the output file, I'm going to just click on it, and in this instance just save it to the desktop, and I'm going to leave the name as Noise. So I'll go to Save. I'm going to overwrite it because I had one I'd actually prepared there earlier, so I'll go to Replace, and then I'm just going to hit the play button and it will do the export for me. So again, that's probably the option that you want to use if you've finished the work, the file's done, you don't need to do anything in Premiere Pro, and the work is ready for an upload or to send it off to a client. I'll just let that render out, and then we'll move on to the Adobe Dynamic Link, which I think is probably the one that will be the most useful to you. Okay. Right, so that's exported that out onto the desktop. So that's your first option, using the Adobe Media Encoder. I'm just going to actually close that down now, just to sort of give me a little bit more memory to work with. Now, we've got a couple of other options then. So I'll tell you what we'll do is let's have a look at the Adobe Dynamic Link. I'm going to go to Premiere Pro. And in all honesty, this is probably the way that you might want to work. You know, you're doing work in After Effects, you're nipping, tucking, adding, changing effects around, but ultimately the work might want to go back into Premiere Pro so you can carry on working on it or add it to your main edit. So you've got a number of options here. You can go to File, and actually you can do a basic import. Let's start with that. So File and Import. I'm going to search for the project that I was working in. I'm not searching for the composition. I'm going to search for the project. So I was in a blending modes composition, and I'm going to click on the composition and go to Import, and it'll give me a number of options. It will show me all of the compositions I was working on in that After Effects project. So if we just go back to it, I'll just show you it. So I had a range of different comps I was playing around with, you can see here, but the one that I want to use is this one called Noise. Let's go back to Premiere. It's the Noise one that I want to import, so I'm going to click on that and click on OK. So as we can see, it's actually brought the entire comp in for me. I can then double click on it, and my fractal noise animation is up here, and I can even drag it into the timeline and get straight to work. Okay, I'm just going to clear those clips and just show you a couple of other dynamic link options. Let's just clear those. I can also go to File, Adobe Dynamic Link, and import After Effects composition. I can then click on here and search for any After Effects projects I was working on. I can then select a project like so, and what it'll do is it'll actually connect to that project and show me the composition. So I've got a composition here that I was working on earlier. I can then click on OK, and it'll bring that composition into the project area on the bottom left. I can then double click on it, and the layer comes up. You can see the work that you created in After Effects. You can also drag it, like we did earlier, onto the timeline, and you're ready to start editing. I'm just going to clear those because there's also still one final option that I'm really keen on, and I'm just going to draw Premiere over a little bit like that and just get After Effects up, and I'm just going to just resize these windows a little bit just to give the demo of what I'm going to be doing. Another option, and this is probably my favorite, is that you can actually take a composition. So again, let's go back to that noise one I was working on earlier. You can grab it like so, drag it into the project bin in Premiere Pro, and it puts it straight in for you. And I've got to be honest, the Adobe Dynamic Link, which effectively this is to an extent, but the Adobe Dynamic Link, sort of going here, I think can be a little bit round the houses. I think the best method, in all honesty, is to grab your composition like I did earlier and just bring it straight in, like so. You should then find that if you do a simple double click on it, it's ready to view or ready to work on in the timeline. Okay folks, in the other tutorials I'm probably going to have a little bit of a look at further exporting techniques, particularly adding to the render queue in Adobe After Effects. Okay folks, hope you found that useful. See you in the next tutorial.